I sat with my hands folded on the sleek conference table and stared as the early light streamed in through the large windows of Innovate Tech's downtown Austin headquarters, casting sharp shadows across the room. From across the hall, you could just barely make out the fragrance of freshly brewed coffee, and the room was filled with the incessant hum of the air conditioner. On a typical Monday in early June 2025, the city was teeming with tech enthusiasm, with food trucks stationed at every corner and new firms springing up. As soon as I opened my laptop screen, an email from our CEO, Evan Caldwell, appeared. His 17 years of dedicated service to the company culminated in the data optimization algorithm that catapulted Innovate Tech to the forefront of its industry. Elena, you were an incredible asset to our team. Your algorithm presentation at the Tech Summit last year was the talk of the town. Congratulations. After all that effort, it was a rare treat to receive such warm praise in the words. I smiled and was ready to react, my fingers poised over the keyboard as a pang of pride filled my heart. My inbox went off again since my supervisor Cassandra Reed and the HR representative Lydia Foster issued calendar invites. Discussion-appropriate convocation. It seemed as if a server had gone down mid-launch. A chill went down my spine. Time and tone, as far as I could tell, were never signs of good news. I could just make out the sound of my heels on the hardwood floor and the waning office chatter as I walked down the glass-lined corridor to the conference room. Cassie sat at the head of the table. Inside her expression, a well-staged mask of corporate anguish, and curious eyes peered out from behind their computers to meet mine. Her nails were nicely manicured and tapping on the edge of a manila folder. Sitting down next to her, Lydia clenched her fist around her clipboard and formed a narrow line with her lips. "Elena, thanks for coming on such short notice," Cassie said, with the same barely concealed excitement that I remembered from past encounters when younger, more captivating talent had stolen the show. I sat down, keeping my head held high and my face serene despite the fact that my heart was pounding, and said, "Please have a seat." In her fleeting glance across at Lydia, as if she were in need of her support, Cassie said, "We're restructuring," and passed the folder to me. "Your position is no longer needed as the company is moving in a new direction," Lydia stated with a rehearsed, sultry voice, nodding in accord. "Eleanor, we're merging the research and development departments under product development, but your contributions have been important." Even if the comments had a catastrophic effect, I was unconcerned. With a corporate smirk, they were releasing me 17 years later. Countless presentations where Evan stole the show from Emmy evenings spent apart from my daughter Sophie. Weekends spent fixing code while Nathan anxiously paced, and a cursory examination of the severance compensation. 2 weeks' pay for every year worked health insurance for 3 months, and a list of career counseling services I had no interest in using were all part of it. I nodded cautiously and quietly shut it, keeping my voice calm the whole time. I understand. Making such decisions is never easy. Their faces shifted to a relief look, and they loosened their shoulders, as if they were getting ready for a scenario where a 57-year-old woman is fired from her job in the computer business, due to the fact that her youth is more important than her experience. They had no clue that I had been planning ahead for weeks, ever since that false email exposed their scheme to erase me from existence, and that I had foreseen this. Took a sleek black envelope out of my purse and placed it lightly on the table as I stood up, adjusted my jacket. "Lydia," I said, my voice as distant as the Austin heat, "please have Evan hand this over when he returns from his conference. Cassie's countenance shifted from composed to nervous, but she swiftly concealed it with her rehearsed words. "Your keycard laptop and phone will be with us by Friday." The code I had written, not for Innovate Tech but for myself, was already rushing through my head as I walked out the door, the glass doors mirroring my steady step. "We will notify your team this afternoon." I smiled a subtle, self-aware grin. See, I'd always been great at discovering problems and correcting them, but now Evan had handed me the biggest defect to repair. See, I'd always been great at discovering problems and correcting them, but now Evan had handed me the biggest defect to repair. Within the Austin headquarters of Innovate Tech, I walked past rows of cubicles while barely picking up the distant buzz of the workplace and the subtle echo of my heels on the hardwood floors. I remained focused on the task at hand, my expression unreadable, as a result of my composed demeanor, as if code were compiling in the background and interested eyes were shining up from their screens. They thought they could get rid of me with a severance package and a corporate smile, after I'd spent 17 years making my way through these halls and coming up with the data optimization technique that made Innovate Tech a big deal. I reached my office, a little corner spot with a view of downtown Austin and the city skyline, shimmering in the relentless June heat, while the Colorado River wound its way through the expansive metropolis like a silver thread. I sank into my chair, listened to the familiar sound of the Leathers Creek as it brought me back to reality, and softly closed the door behind me. My mental whirlwind was abruptly interrupted as my personal phone rang in my rucksack. Even though my chest hurt, I steadied my hands and sent a single text message to Nexus Dynamics CEO Marcus Tate, Innovate Tech's biggest rival. That was my goal. I'm done. The screen began to light up as he said, "Let's go ahead." His reaction was almost instantaneous. "All right, the orders are ready. Where should we eat this evening?" A twinge of satisfaction cut through the animosity, and I radiated happiness at finally accomplishing something I'd worked for a long time. Now it was time to put all this planning into action. As I looked around my office, I saw many artifacts that served as memories of the work I had dedicated so much of myself to. On one wall, you could see framed awards from tech conferences. On another, I had a photo of Sophie from her first science fair where she was smiling broadly with her gap-toothed grin and the small robot we had constructed together. Nathan had snapped the photo. I still hear his roar of joy as he encouraged her his sense of delight in her mirroring mine. During my 17 years at Innovate Tech, I had the opportunity to establish a life outside of work. I would stay up late to assist Sophie with her math homework, while mentally debugging lines of code, and I would encourage Nathan through his own marketing career problems. Half of the Fortune 500 used Innovate Tech's main product, DataSync, and I'd given up many nights, weekends, and memories with my family to develop the algorithm that drove it. At this year's Tech Summit in San Francisco, Evan claimed my work as his own brilliance, but to him I had always been only part of the team, a name to gloss over. I could still hear the arrogance and smoothness in his voice as he referred to me as one of our research team members, and the crowd erupted in applause for his vision. The betrayal he inflicted that moment had hurt me, but I hadn't realized how extreme Innovate Tech's efforts were to have me erased until about a month ago. Surprisingly, the misdirected email turned out to be a thread between Cassie and Evan. The subject line read, "Research Division Reorg." Their plan included my dismissal from my position and the claim of my algorithm as company-developed tech with my name removed. Cassie's words cut deep. Elena's too old school to fight back. Evan's response was even colder. Very well, do this as soon as possible. As I sat in the harsh shadows cast by my laptop screen, I felt as though my workplace had broken beneath her weight. She is no longer an asset. Now that I've been an asset for them for so long, steadily growing their empire, they see me as a liability. Looking at those words made my palms tremble, not from fear but from a cool, fiery determination, something I hadn't felt in years. They expected me to retire at the age of 57 as a woman in a profession that favored youth since I wasn't just a coder. As a problem solver, I had devoted my whole career to fixing this very problem. My mind was racing with code that night, but it wasn't for Innovate Tech, it was for my own future plans. My mind was racing with code that night, but it wasn't for Innovate Tech, it was for my own future plans. I was working in my office by myself, with only the light from my laptop for company, as the rest of the team had already departed for the day. Just a faint hum of downtown Austin could be made from beyond the window. Thinking back on my time at Innovate Tech, which was 17 years, I kept coming back to the email exchange between Cassie and Evan. In my mind, their words, too old school to fight back, and a liability lurked like a screenplay with a twist. But they saw me as nothing more than a piece of code that they could remove. On my own laptop, the sort I'd bought years ago to separate my work life from my home life, I started a fresh document. This practice became second nature to me after hearing the horrifying stories of other women in computers who had their ideas stolen or their work erased. With each keystroke, my determination grew as I started typing steadily. Protecting my algorithm, which is my creation, is more important to me than letting them erase me. During one of those late-night debugging sessions at home, the first danger indicator came 6 months ago. While Sophie slept soundly in the room across from me, I would prop up my laptop on my knees and listen to her soft snores reverberate through the room. While I was reconciling their project logs, I saw that Innovate Tech's patent application was missing my data optimization technique. This algorithm was the code behind DataSync, our flagship product, and the reason we became market leaders. A clerical or oversight error may have contributed to the legal department's backlog, an idea that had occurred to me. I emailed Cassie the next morning with an air of formality and politeness. When I asked, "Have you heard anything new regarding the optimization algorithm patent?" her hurried reaction ought to have prompted curiosity. It was my gut feeling honed through years of coding that led me to stay late at the office, after everyone else had left, staring out at the shimmering Austin cityscape, like an uncertain promise I wasn't sure I could keep. "Don't worry, Elena, we've got this. No need to be concerned." But her comment seemed off a departure from her usually composed manner. I was relieved when I found a strategy memo hidden among Innovate Tech's internal documents on a shared drive that I wasn't authorized to access. I stumbled upon the file while helping a young engineer with server issues. The document revealed their plan to claim my algorithm as company-developed technology, without particular inventor attribution, and to fire me before they get the patent. Evan had written, "Elena's contributions are valuable but replaceable," and his comments hurt. Cassie had responded with an even chillier tone, "I concur. She will be phased out gradually as we rearrange her section. She'll never see it coming." I sat there, screen shadows falling harshly over my face, feeling as if I had been rebooted without warning. They planned to delete me entirely after 17 years nights without Sophie weekends. Without Nathan presentations where Evan took credit for my work regrettably, they had underestimated me. Being a problem solver rather than just a coder allowed me to resolve this issue. That night on my personal laptop, I was using my own time and resources to fine-tune my algorithm. I persisted in keeping it even after having its efficiency, a result that would have made Innovate Tech proud because I was determined to keep it. Every step I documented timestamps development logs. Even the coffee stains on my desk from those late hours proves that this effort was mine outside of the scope of my job agreement. Years ago at a Women in Tech conference, I met Clara Bennett and saved her business card for precisely such an occasion. She was contacted by me at that point. We met in a quiet restaurant on Austin's outskirts, the kind where the waitstaff calls you Hun. Clara slid a file over the table, her eyes sweet yet hearty, and her voice low. Retro country tunes blasted from the jukebox. My dear Elena, this has been simmering for months. As I quickly perused the file, my heart was pounding from terror, but from a steady resolve. It had all the information you may want, such as meeting minutes emails, and an early draft of their patent application, thankfully scrubbed of your identity. I said, "Thank you, Clara," kept my voice calm, and put the file in my backpack. Also, I looked at my employment contract again and found the original in an old box in our Westlake Hills attic, where the scent of cedar and books was still there. In the midst of all the fancy wording, there was a clause that protected the ideas that I had developed on my own time and with my own money, and I had entirely overlooked it. During those nervous weeks, I had a rare sense of comfort, realizing I had an unexpected weapon, and I couldn't help but smile. I was able to expedite the application process and submit for a patent in my own name, thoroughly documenting the algorithm adjustments, because Marcus connected me with a top-tier intellectual property counsel. Last week, I kept mum about the patent's issuance, relishing in a little win, while I patiently awaited Innovate Tech's response. They had it now, and it had happened far more quickly than I had expected, but I was ready. The taco truck near Zilker Park and the East Austin dive bar with the neon lights and the music so loud that no one could hear us were among the secret spots where Marcus Tate and I had been meeting for weeks. Marcus, in contrast to Innovate Tech, saw the potential and value in my algorithm. As they dined on brisket tacos, he stated to Elena, "They don't deserve you, Elena," in a voice that was both powerful and filled with deep need. "Nexus Dynamics is calling you." I'd nodded my decision set, but I'd kept it quiet, waiting for the proper opportunity to strike. "We'll offer you recognition, equity, and a platform to develop something even bigger, something they never did. The time has come for it." I gathered all of my belongings, including a portrait of Sophie Badges from conferences spanning 17 years, and a mug my coworkers had given me for Christmas last year with the words "Code Queen" in sparkly lettering. As a quiet testimony to my professionalism, my Innovate Tech laptop and phone sat neatly on the desk, but I discarded them all. A new code that would shatter the glass ceiling they had erected around me was my motivation for being here, not making a fuss. I knew Friday would be my final day at Innovate Tech, as I knew Friday would be my last day at Innovate Tech. As I stepped out of my office, the Austin skyline a fiery orange in the setting sun. But Monday would be a revelation. On the drive home to our Westlake Hills bungalow, I could smell the cedar and hear the distant hum of cicadas. The streets were quiet, lined with live oaks casting long shadows in the fading light. Warm light from the kitchen lamps warmed the living room and hallway. as Sophie giggled from her sofa, her scientific project a solar-powered robot strewn on the coffee table. With his sleeves pulled up and a scowl on his face, Nathan toiled away in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chili. Looking up, he yelled out, "Hey, hon," his smile waning as he beheld my face. "Hard day." As I set my bag down, the weight of the black envelope that Lydia had given me echoed in my mind, and I nodded in a quiet but compassionate voice. "Nathan, they released me." His eyes widened as a mixture of surprise and rage flashed across his face as he slammed his spoon into the pot, signaling that it was done. "They really, considering all that you've done for them?" As Sophie's worried brown eyes popped up over the couch, she ceased laughing. "Mom, how is this possible?" I approached her to stroke her hair and put on an act of smiling, finding solace in her company. "My dear, nothing is too huge for us to handle. Sure, I'll let you know later." As I watched her small hands tinker with wires, I couldn't help but think about the future I wanted her to inherit with me. Despite her skeptical expression, she persisted in her endeavor. I led Nathan into the kitchen where the comforting aroma of chili wafted through the air. "I could feel it coming," I said, my voice level-headed and collected as I rested against the countertops. "They've plotted to have me removed." In an email, I discovered that Cassie and Evan were trying to take credit for my algorithm and remove my name from it. Nathan's jaw clenched, his hands clenched into fists, and his voice lowered into a low growl. "Hey, Elena, that's your job." "Oh no, they're crazy." With a soothing touch and unwavering determination, I placed my hand on his arm. "Definitely not. I have been preparing Nathan." I filled him in on the details of the contract. With Nexus Dynamics, the patent for my improved algorithm, the 50% efficiency gain I had achieved on my own, and the evidence Clara had gathered, I proceeded to notify him of my plan. As he made new discoveries, his demeanor shifted from rage to awe and pride, and he lowered his voice to show his growing awe. "The sale will be sealed tonight when I meet with Marcus. With any luck, Innovate Tech will find out how much they've lost by Monday. You've been planning a return the whole time, haven't you?" Nodding and smiling, I felt a little triumph in my chest. Marcus Tate and I met that night at a remote restaurant on Austin's outskirts. Nestled in the hills near Lake Travis, where the city lights glistened like stars on the black water. With a bottle of red wine set out on the table and Marcus's private booth prepared for us in the rear, we settled into our seats, which creaked ever so slightly. As Marcus moved closer, his eyes narrowed and his voice low. The din of the restaurant glasses clinking whispers, steak sizzling on the grill, dwindled into the distance. "They actually pulled it off," he said, his voice betraying a combination of amazement and contentment. "They let go of the lady who developed their central technology. What you made was never comprehended by Evan, was it?" As I responded, I steadied my voice and savored the full flavor of my wine. The user interface, marketing, and financial data were all visible to him, but the architecture, to him it was all tech stuff. Marcus pushed a folder across the table, its contents sharp with the contract we had been working on for weeks, and let out a deep, knowing laugh. "All the paperwork's finalized," he remarked in a rapid, business-like manner. "Your patent will be licensed exclusively to Nexus Dynamics the moment you sign. A 7-figure signing bonus, considerable stock in Nexus Dynamics, and recurring royalties from any products employing my algorithm are among the provisions I had already remembered as I perused the papers, reviewing them before Monday morning's news release that would announce you as our new Chief Technology Officer." I had also made sure that the 6 exceptional engineers I had guided at Innovate Tech were well rewarded with promotions and senior positions. When Evan listens, what expression do you think he'll wear? Marcus questioned, his eyes sparkling with eagerness as he tugged at his lips in a grin. I signed the final sheet with a steady line and a faint edge as I closed the folder. My first priority is my team, and I hate that they'll have to bear the brunt of this. But what about Evan? When he deletes a file by accident, he will learn the hard way what happens next. Theo Carter, my attorney, met with me at his office, which looked out over South Congress earlier in the week. Below the street was lively with street performers and food trucks. The open window let in the Austin vibe. Theo had reviewed Clara's paperwork, my patent, and the job contract with his sharp approval-looking eyes. He had touched the file and identified himself as Ironclad Elena in a belligerent voice. Your intellectual property rights were violated since they did not patent your original algorithm, and it is clear that they do not have jurisdiction over your improvements. We will be submitting a lawsuit on Monday in conjunction with the Nexus announcement. They will face consequences in a very public and literal sense. I beamed with satisfaction as I grinned. I understood that this wasn't only about exacting revenge, it was also about being recognized and showing the industry that women over 50 like myself weren't a burden. Quite the opposite, we were a powerful force. After dinner at home, I tucked Sophie into bed. Her robotics project was lit by her bedside light, and her voice was a mix of sleepiness and curiosity. "Is everything all right, Mom?" I said, my voice soft but firm, as I delicately brushed a strand of hair from her face, my heart swelling with compassion. "You appeared sad today." "I'm okay, my love. For us, for you, I am fighting for something very important." Her eyes fluttered close as she nodded her little hand, gently grasping mine, and the peaceful trust in her words motivated me. As I moved into the hallway and pulled out my phone to confirm with Marcus, I kissed her forehead, feeling the warmth of her trust remaining. Texting, "Everything's set." I maintained a steady hand and an unwavering determination. His response was a simple word, "Let's launch Monday," that brought a grin to my face. Nathan placed his arm around me as we climbed into bed, and I snuggled into his arms as well. His voice was a whisper in the dark, but it was perfect. "You're going to change the game, Elena," she said. I nodded, my gaze locked on the ceiling as I stood there. With Nathan's arm around me and his voice barely audible in the dark, I crept into bed with him. "You're going to change the game, Elena," she said. I nodded, my gaze locked on the ceiling as I stood there in the stillness of the Austin night, mentally prepared for a storm. With my line-by-line scripted return, Innovate Tech was on the verge of crashing. The sunbeams from Texas that pierce your window on Monday morning were so intense that they compelled you to get out of bed and face them. Wearing a specially purchased charcoal suit, the cloth was cool and crisp on my skin. It was a power outfit that felt like armor, and I got dressed with care. With my laptop bag at my side and the black package I had left with Lydia, now a ticking time bomb in Innovate Tech's hands, I got into the back seat of the Nexus Dynamics town vehicle, which came promptly at 7:30 a.m. The driver even tipped his hat in my direction. We hopped onto the interstate, the Austin skyline aglow in the morning light, and I nestled into the luxurious leather, my phone ringing with a message from Marcus Tate. With eagerness pulsating through his words, he added, "Press release is live at 7 a.m. It has already been picked up by Industry News. He sent me an email with a link, and I eagerly clicked on it, feeling a mix of joy and anxiety. A large number of people were reacting. In my role as Chief Technology Officer, I was welcomed by the headline, "Nexus Dynamics acquires exclusive rights to revolutionary data. Algorithm welcomes creator Alina Harper." The article detailed my 17 years at Innovate Tech, my role as the sole inventor of the patented technology, and how Nexus Dynamics would now handle licensing for any company that utilizes my algorithm, starting with Innovate Tech. My phone went off again when my lawyer Theo Carter sent me a text message. At 7:15 in the morning, I filed my case and it was served to Innovate Tech. As the city flew past, I relaxed, feeling a wave of contentment wash over me. Up until this point, Innovate Tech was unaware that the rules had changed. The planned Monday morning executive meeting was devolving into anarchy at Innovate Tech's downtown offices 8 miles away. My phone lit up like a live broadcast as my lead developer Miguel, who had been my eyes and ears since I departed, provided me a text message play-by-play. He wrote, "Complete meltdown here," at 7:45 a.m. After returning from his conference, Evan perused the news release. The image of Evan pacing the conference room, his tailored suit rumpled his face, flushed with anger, as he demanded answers from Cassie and the legal team, and the glass walls of their executive suite, quivering under his weight, was crystal clear in my mind. Another update was given by Miguel by 8:00 a.m. Every single file that contains your name is being pulled by legal. Just now, the research servers were brought in for the IT team to assess. We came at Nexus Dynamics' slick offices in South Austin, a contemporary marvel of glass and steel with its lobby throbbing with activity. Cassie looked like she was going to faint, but I smiled and sipped the bitter coffee the driver had brought me. I went out into the sun, feeling its warmth on my cheeks, and stomped my heels on the marble floor on my way to my new corner office. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, providing a breathtaking view of the city, and in the distance I could make out the shimmer of the Colorado River. Miguel was at it again, and my phone buzzed with yet another update. Since the market opened, the stock has dropped 10%. Board members are making demands over the phone. Tell me, please. I was able to keep my cool and answer calmly, even though we were chatting over text. Browse your own inbox. You and the team have offers waiting. I had discreetly promised to prevent any repercussions by securing top positions at Nexus Dynamics for my 6 engineers, along with the salary increases they were due. Nexus Dynamics' stock price rose 15%, and Innovate Tech's stock price fell 25% by 9:15 a.m. when tech outlets began speculating about Innovate Tech's doom. The business world was exploding. My phone alerted me to a call from Evan, and his name appeared across the screen. I allowed the call to reach voicemail, where he recorded a message in a distressed, raspy tone. "We appear to be misunderstanding each other, Elena." I neglected to answer as I forwarded the mail to Theo in anticipation of my first team meeting in my role as Chief Technology Officer. Please get in touch with me as soon as possible. I had gone to Naomi's house near UT Austin to present material for her freelance writing business, but by midday, things had escalated to the point that Evan and Cassie were up uninvited. At the door of her bungalow, Naomi greeted me with a scent of ink and freshly made coffee. Her desk was a mess of papers. On the other hand, as she watched Evan's car come up, her expression turned sad. To begin with, why are they even here? Her voice was guarded and severe as she asked questions through the glass. My voice remained steady as I sighed, making a determined sound. Their purpose is to beg. Evan stomped in, and Cassie followed close. after her typically calm expression changing to one of anxiety as her cheeks flushed. His voice betrayed his rage and desperation as he cried out to Elena, "This has gone far enough," accompanied by a flurry of hand motions. "Thanks to DataSync, our technology, we are unbeatable." I stood on the kitchen counter at Naomi's house, arms crossed and a deadpan expression on my face. "Are you serious, Evan? You thought I was going to vanish. Evan, you stole her work. While you were busy destroying the company, I've been debugging your lies," Naomi remarked in a sharp and bitter voice. "Are you surprised that she retaliated after you defiled her name and stole her algorithm?" As Cassie was about to dispute, I stood firm and said something in a harsh, unyielding voice. "Evan, you won't regret this," Cassie warned, her voice quivering as she turned on him in response to the ship's impending crash. "Elena, you claimed this wouldn't happen. Now Nexus Dynamics is going to charge you to license my patent, which you failed to secure. You can choose to rebuild DataSync from the ground up," Evan said, scowling. Was she planning to get into a duel? "That is what you said." Evan stood alone, his belligerence waning and his shoulders drooping under the burden of reality as she stormed away in a fury, leaving him to fend for himself. I made eye contact with him while speaking loudly and with a hint of triumph in my tone. "Find out how much it costs to lose what you had, Evan. You should have valued it." My phone beeped at Nexus Dynamics once more, this time with Miguel's update. Not one but two majors have recently made the move to Nexus. The board is in emergency mode, so I grinned and got ready for the lawsuit that Theo had filed at Travis County. This wasn't going to be a fight for justice. It would be a fight for recognition and the smashing of the glass ceiling that they had erected around me. As I quickly glanced at a text message from Sophie, I could barely make out the words. "I'm proud of you, Mom." A new code was taking shape in my head, one that would change the future for her, for me, and for every woman who had ever been erased. My heart filled with pride. The actual price tag of their crash was going to be revealed to Innovate Tech soon. The actual price tag of their crash was going to be revealed to Innovate Tech soon. In the weeks that followed, the tech landscape in Austin was hit hard and relentlessly by a maelstrom of court disputes and industrial turmoil, much like a rainstorm in Texas. I was taken aback by how quickly the Innovate Tech legal team was able to respond to the case that Theo had filed in Travis County. The evidence that Clara had collected, along with my thorough documentation, proved to be irrefutable. My patent, the misdirected emails, and Innovate Tech's strategy plan were meticulously examined by the judge, a lady known for her no-nonsense demeanor, sharp eyes, and reputation for impartiality. Her voice reverberated throughout the courtroom as she said, "The defendant's actions constitute a clear violation of intellectual property rights." This finality caused a ripple effect across the Innovate Tech crew. Effective immediately, Innovate Tech will pay licensing fees to Nexus Dynamics at triple the industry rate. In addition, we will publicly acknowledge Ms. Harper as the only creator of the data optimization algorithm. Evan's face turned glum, his jaw clenched, and he held onto the table tightly, as if it could steady him in the midst of the chaos of his empire's downfall. Cassie, seated next to him, looked as though she had been unexpectedly fired from the company, her expressionless face betraying her lack of professionalism. No amount of PR could ever salvage Innovate Tech from the judgment, which was more than just a financial setback. It was a public humiliation. Nexus Dynamics surged, our market lead now unstoppable. While their stock dropped another 10% that day, clients defecting at the rate of a corrupted server breakdown. As I stepped out of the courtroom, I felt the warm sun on my cheeks and could feel the energy of Austin all about me. Street musicians played on South Congress, tacos were being served by food trucks to tech workers, and I could barely make out the shimmer of the Colorado River in the distance. With the emergence of a new chapter and the absence of faults and flaws in the code, I experienced a lighter weight than I had in years. Beyond just winning a case, I had shattered the glass ceiling that Innovate Tech had erected around me. I had laboriously banged my head against this ceiling for 17 years. After leaving Innovate Tech's impersonal cubicles behind, I made my way to Harper Tech Solutions that afternoon. My new office was located in South Congress and had exposed brick walls and expansive windows, which were a welcome change. When I joined Harper Tech, it wasn't only a consulting business, it was a mission to empower women in technology by providing a platform to safeguard their intellectual property and prevent their erasure, just as it had almost happened to me. Already I had my first customer lined up, a data scientist battling to recover her stolen code, 2 young engineers launching their own artificial intelligence startup, and their stories of perseverance resonated with mine. Zoe Miller, a brilliant young woman with an eye for detail and a heart for helping others, was an excellent addition to our expanding staff, and I was lucky enough to recruit her as my assistant. Nexus Dynamics captured clients that Innovate Tech could only dream of. Our products were powered by my algorithm, and our stock was a beacon for investors seeking stability in an industry that was otherwise unstable. We had become the market leader. I had heard rumors that Evan had been let go by the board of directors of Innovate Tech. His golden parachute ripped to shreds in the aftermath. A cautionary tale in tech circles, his low-level work at a Dallas company serves as a warning of the consequences of undervaluing the people who construct your empire. As if she could erase her history, Cassie had run away to Seattle in pursuit of a position at a mid-tier company, erasing any references to Innovate Tech from her LinkedIn page. However, I neglected them in favor of planning for the future. As she witnessed my success, Sophie's self-esteem skyrocketed, and my narrative served as an inspiration for her science projects in the months that followed. During supper one night, she had exclaimed, "I want to be like you, Mom," as she enthused. While I held her close, my heart racing with emotion, my voice soft with pride, as I promised her that nothing would ever take it away from her. Meanwhile, Nathan had finally pulled his life together. His marketing career was booming once he stopped worrying about me, and our home was once again filled with the sound of his laughter, which I had missed. I stood on stage at the National Women in Tech Summit in San Francisco, ready to deliver the keynote talk exactly 1 year after my dismissal. The crowd was filled with influential people, including journalists, young engineers, and industry executives, all of whom were interested in hearing my tale. And now let us give a warm welcome to Elena Harper, Chief Technology Officer at Nexus Dynamics and founder of Harper Tech Solutions. The organizer remarked, her voice echoing across the auditorium. The thundering clapping was like a rush of recognition that I had never experienced at Innovate Tech, where I had always remained in the background. My charcoal suit was a subtle homage to that Monday morning in Austin, as I strode up to the stage, my voice solid and powerful. I want to talk about owning your value today, about protecting your work and voice, no matter who tries to erase it. I recounted my story, the technical successes of my algorithm, and the larger struggle for acknowledgement for women in computing, to be seen, not marginalized. Shortly after, an awestruck young engineer, came up to me, her voice quivering with excitement. As a result of reading your tale, I began keeping track of my projects when I had free time. Thanks. My voice warmed, my heart was full, and I grinned. That will safeguard your future the most intelligent code you will ever write. As I drove home to Westlake Hills that evening, I reflected on the lessons I had learned and how they could be applied by others. The Austin cityscape sparkled against the sunset, and I thought, your ideas are valuable and should be protected from those who would want to take them. Thus, it's important to keep track of everything you do, including timestamps, logs, and personal resources. Secondly, instead of letting betrayal define, you use it as fuel to create something bigger and uniquely yours. I had never dared dreamed of a future until that email from Evan that rejected me. It was more than just a farewell. It was the code that broke the glass ceiling. With Justice One, I also received recognition, a legacy to leave to Sophie and a platform to help others. And for every woman who had ever been told to,